Welcome to Jams for All. I'm here at Edgemen with Harvest on their road to Hellfest. Gonna ask them a couple questions. Or I guess you guys go ahead and introduce yourself first.
I'm Dave, sing for Harvest, and I've been with the band since '94. Oh, do I?
Steal your mic. I was going to say lift up.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
Dan,
not
also
good.
from Harvest. I joined Harvest in '96, February of '96, and was in it till we split in '99. Then I did the Hope Conspiracy, and he did a bunch of other stuff. And
Yeah.
since 2011, we've been back playing again. So
Oh yeah.
try to do what we can, even though we're all spread out across the world.
Yeah, well, we all appreciate it. So, okay, so my first question, how did Harvest as a band come to be and where did the name come from?
So that happened. I met Eric Olson, the original guitar player, at Extreme Noise Records when it first opened, and in 1994 in Minneapolis. Yep, and we hit it off, and we had a couple of different meetings and so forth. But we said, "Hey, we'd like to try to do something musically." And he's an accomplished guitarist, and we both had similar interests in kind of like the genres that we wanted to look after and go after and stuff. So that's kind of how it started. And we met Adam and Aaron Parks, their brothers that were also with us at the very beginning. And that kind of the conception of Harvest and happened in late '94, early '95. And the idea for the name really came just in this idea of harvest as not only a word from where we came from in terms of like rural Minnesota,
Yeah.
maybe very much more literal, but also and sort of maybe in the time frame of which the band was formed was in autumn. But at the same time, I think the idea of harvesting, we were very emotive at the time, and I think that's where we were looking at, and I wouldn't say emo in a sense to say what it is today, but at the time it was an emotive term. It was an emotive word for
Right.
us, and it really just was like, okay, this could be anything, and this can sound like anything we want it to. The name doesn't necessarily label the sonically, like what it's going to be sonically, and I think that's proven in transitions. You hear where we came from. Our influences at the time were much different than our influences later in the '90s, in the latter part of our catalog,
Yeah.
of that time frame of our catalog. So yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, how has straight edge culture impacted you both individually and as a band?
Well, for me, it was like I connected with it. I'm not straight edge now. For a number of years, I lived drug free. And for me, it kind of started because I had a friend who died in a drunk driving accident. She was a passenger and the driver was drunk, unfortunately, and she was, young and stuff. And, I'm still vegan. I keep to this day, like, I think I'm grateful that I think like when I was 18, I got it right. I think like vegan straight edge is the best life to live. Uh, I keep wanting to,
Go back.
like, I was drug free for many years. And then up until basically I got married and my wife, basically kind of, she has a different cultural approach to drinking. She's Brazilian, and she wanted, for us to like have a glass of wine together. It sounds dumb to straight edge kids, but like for me, it was like, I basically, wanted to, see her happy and stuff. But I don't know. It's a little weird, but yeah, like I still to this day, it's funny because I talk to her and it's like, oh, I think I want to be straight edge, and she's like, no. So like, she's not like against it, It's funny because she's totally now she doesn't really drink and stuff, anyways. But I don't know. But it's I do think it's the best. The cleaner you can live, the better, and especially for me, being fully in control of yourself is.
Yeah.
I worry about it. Last year we played out in Brooklyn, the benefit for Rich Hall. And, just the first night we were there, we saw people on the streets and like, cannabis has gone wild. And like, we saw this girl like barely, walking out of a bar and like, barely getting in a car, and it's like, man, I worry about people's safety, so it's like, I don't know, the more people can be in control of themselves, the better. So, but I'm not a full purist, so.
I think straight edge, the idea of it is very personal. And I think that everybody should apply it to themselves in a way that makes sense. I think generalizing it in a way to say, hey, you're not straight edge, that's not, you don't know someone. And I think it's very important that that's clarified and that that's something that's like, you can't put a blanket statement on some and label somebody. And I think in a scene, yes, there is the straight edge movement, and I think it's wonderful. And I think that I found a place for it and belonging. So when I went sort of quote unquote straight edge or drug free, I was 21. So normally that's when people go wild, and I actually went wild without doing anything. And so for a number of years, 8 or 9 years, I remained off any substances or anything like that. And so that was fine for me. But there was a time and place when I felt like I couldn't handle it and then I stopped. And then I felt like, okay, I could introduce it back, but in moderation. And that was fine too. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think that and I think anybody who judges that per se isn't thinking about the whole truth of it and everybody's ownership of that term and responsibility for themselves. And I think that's really, really valuable and important for me anyway, as an individual, and how I perceive it is I think it applies. You take with it what you can, the positives and the negatives, whatever it might be. But I think for me, it was a very positive experience, and it was a much needed break for me. And now I can I can take on life more responsibly. It's not like we just, it's hard to say that it's like an on and off.
Yeah.
And one can switch on and off. And I've had plenty of alcoholism in outside, I've known plenty of it within friends groups and some families. So it's a tough call. So, but it is very personal.
Yeah.
That is it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
There's so many answers, right? And there's no right or wrong one. It's just, right. Again, I will hold it always personally. So, yeah. And it was, and I applied it very, in my life growing up, it was very valuable for me to remain clean at the time that I did. So
awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for answering. Okay. Can you remember any, or like whatever is the biggest difference between the recording of Living with the God Complex versus Transitions?
So interesting. And so I'll love to hear Dan's perspective on this, because mine, so I just recently I'm now having coffee with Eric Olson, our original guitar player, and he and I've always been in touch since Harvest, since we disbanded in 99. But he didn't come back with us in 2011, but he and I have remained very close, and he and I have different he and I had some different perspectives, but I think one thing that applied was what I did feel was a really valid point that he made more recently over coffee, was this idea that at the time of the LP we had a very stable lineup, and that has a lot to do with how good or how good something could be or feel like organically. And I think that's where the LP succeeds. Mm-hmm. And I, not to say that the One Step Closer Than the Last 7-inch is bad or negative in any sort of way. It's just different. Mm-hmm. It's very, very different. It's radically different than the LP to me. And so playing with those songs along each other makes sense, but at the same time, there was a lot that happened in the space and time of 2 years till that 7-inch happened. Mm. And we went through various members changes and different drummers and just different, we didn't have a bass player and a drummer for a little while either that were kind of stable and rooted, and that all of that takes a toll in writing, I think, in the creative process and figuring things out and figuring out this is sonically where we want to go, but now we have new people in here who haven't been with us in the past, and they're not along historically on that journey with us after so many years of sharing those talks and influences and saying, hey, listen, we're really vibing with this sound, and we kind of think that that's maybe a trajectory we'd like to go. but then there's like a new person and they've got completely different perspectives, and so we want to acknowledge those perspectives and honor them. So that's kind of, I think, how One Step Closer 7-inch turned out. Is it's both ours and the other members who were involved and their perspectives coming into it too. And those people who recorded on the record aren't necessarily the ones we toured with. Only one tour. So that's a whole thing in and of itself. So
Yeah.
that's a wonderful question, because there is quite a difference in that. So yeah. Anyway, here is Dan.
Yeah, no, I mean, for the recording thing, just a couple things that I find interesting. The One Step Closer in the last, or the 7-inch that's on Transitions. So yeah, we had a drummer, Ian Prince, and he actually used my drum set, which was actually Justin Kane's drum set, who played the original drummer of Disembodied, Martyr AD, and all that.
And he is
he's our roadie here today too.
Oh yeah, that's so
and he's
cool.
from our hometown, and he was in the original bands before Harvest. That I was in for like two other original.
They played two bands since like 91, 92.
91. Yeah.
But yeah, and so like he sold me his drum set, and our drummer who was playing on that record, he had a crappy drum set, so he used mine and stuff. And a fun recording thing, not that it's so related to your question, but I was talking with this the other day about a guitar that I had, which was a crappy guitar that I basically built myself, and we destroyed it. So the beginning of In the Eyes of Decay, the song starts with us smashing the guitar and like hitting it with baseball bats and skateboards. So like all the noises in the beginning of that is us destroying the first guitar I built. So it's kind
That's
of a fun
amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a little bit of a follow-up question. Cessation has such a different vibe compared to the rest of that album. How did that get written?
Yeah, so wow. Yeah, that was deep in a couple of different wells at that point. And like sonically, I that was written in part by Jamie Wolford.
Okay.
And he was a member for how long?
Just a little while.
Yeah, like a year.
End of 95 to beginning of 96.
Yeah, he was a wonderful friend. He's a wonderful friend. And he...
great musician and composer.
Yeah, he went on to do a band called The Stereo, which you may or may not know about, but check it out. It's really great.
Fueled by Ramen.
Yeah. Is that the label?
Fueled by Ramen.
Is his record label too. Anyways, long story short is he was a member of Harvest, and he went to school with Eric Olson. And so he knew him, and so we wanted to add another guitar player after we had as a 4-piece. We wanted to add another guitar player, so we were like, okay. And so Jamie was available, so we brought him in. And I think that he had a huge influence on that song, Jamie did, because he's a more melodic player. And so for that song specifically, I think he had a lot of influence there. And we were coming out of the Worn Through the Layers 7-inch, which was really like kind of like a wild, like a journey of discovery of like, okay, where are we? What are we? Like, what is this? And like, what is this going to be? And Cessation was the fast follow to that. Like, that was like kind of the next thing, I feel like, after that record. But so I think his addition to that, to our ensemble was part reason that song sounds the way it does. Now, lyrically, inspiration wise, was really, I was digging deep into not using drugs. I was also deep into a well of like Buddhism and other things. And so that song resonates with a number of different themes.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that was. So in the headspace, I think that was, and why it is the way it is, and why it's kind of unique and stands alone on its own. So,
Yeah.
Something quick for that.
Yeah.
No, I always say that I ruined a perfectly good emo band, because like the first Harvest 7-inch is worlds different from everything. And it wasn't that we just became more metal because I joined the band, because the band was moving already in that direction. But yeah, there's a pretty big sonic difference between the first 7-inch and the second, and even going on later. I mean, Transitions is a really aptly titled collection of songs, because the band has, really changed up style quite a bit. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, a couple more. How did it feel to create Years of Defiance and discuss so many years later?
That was a hard one because we were all living in different spots.
Right.
Even me, and I was in Canada.
Logistically hard.
It was, super difficult. And we got asked to do this tour, this reunion tour, 2011, and that was the impetus to just try to maybe write something new. And Dan had always had some things because we have a whole other past history with doing a project in between '99 and that 2009, which was called City of God, and it's like a whole other band, really, truly, with a number of different other songs that don't sound like anything else. But to that end, though, he had some things that he had written and that maybe didn't fit into that, but were some that were good, and so we kind of picked through that. But we thought that tour was advantageous to kind of release something new, to see what we could do, and that's where it culminated. But the recording process was difficult. We all had to do it in different spots, and Adam Patterson did it in our last drummer in Harvest in '99. Did that recording, in Virginia, I think. And
No,
or did he?
I can tell.
Okay, yeah, you got to tell this.
So recording wise, that was a crazy one because I live in Sao Paulo, Brazil now.
Whoa.
Yeah, and Dave at the time was living in Canada. Adam, our drummer, was in the DC area, I believe, and John, our bass player, was over in Switzerland at the time.
Yep.
And so I think John flew back. Adam flew to Minneapolis. Our other guitarist, who was Mike Duffy, who played in Endeavor back in the 90s, he was in Minneapolis. So they got together and recorded kind of the bass tracks in Minneapolis, then sent the files to me in Brazil. I added my guitars, then I sent it to Dave in Canada to record his vocals, and then we sent it to a guy in Boston to mix, and then he couldn't finish it up, sent it back to me. So it's like one of those things where the technological capacity to record like this is crazy. We wouldn't have thought of this decades back, and it's not the way I prefer. I mean, I love the live band setting. Even we used to always record everyone in the same room at the same time. So it was a challenge with that, but I recorded backup vocals in my car because I didn't have a place where I could scream without like scaring my neighbors. So it was a crazy process, but I was really happy with just putting out new music and getting going, getting things moving again. So
it also made sense that we had Carl Severson from Ferret originally, and now Good Fight Management, so Good Fight Music, to do the stuff for us, and he was more than happy to help push that record and help us a lot. So that was very kind of him. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I was wondering if it was like a internet type thing then when you started talking about that. Yeah,
it was a lot of back and forth.
It was a hot mess, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
You guys did it though.
Basically, thankfully I'm an audio engineer as well, so I was able to record everything instrumentally and send up the song ideas to them to listen to it and learn things and all that. So
not on the mic, sorry.
No, it's okay. It was
I got him crinkling this thing like a nervous energy or something.
Okay. So actually a few more. What is your favorite thing about Minneapolis hardcore, just the music scene there in general?
Oh, I mean, there are so many reasons to love Minneapolis hardcore right now. Okay, well, you'll have your chance, but I gotta
Your turn.
yeah, but no, I mean, seriously though, it's wild. There are so many bands, and it's like everybody is taking the reins to do something, and whether it's set up shows or whether it's promote other bands, and it's really I don't know. I mean, I'm sure because I'm older and I'm not going to every show like I used to, so I'm only seeing some things on the surface, but I know how many shows, and the great part is it's not only hardcore, but just heavy music or punk or whatever it is. Minneapolis is it's a plethora of different styles and genres of whatever you want to label it. We have such a rich history with punk and hardcore, but now I feel like the scene is just thriving, and people are making the venues work and making unconventional venues work, and we just did a show at a VFW hall, which is normally just a stage only thing, and we made it a floor show, and and I think some other people who promote in the like local scene and the punk scene are like, let's do that venue as a floor show. We didn't know we could do that or something
so
like.
cool.
So that's the kind of thing. Like it's just getting scrappy and like kind of like doing what we always have done is DIY and like by using venues in different ways, using spaces in different ways, but just like we want to get as many bands there as possible, but we have so many bands that are getting really good and really big fast in our scene, which I love. And we have and I'll say this as the last thing and I'll hand it to Dan, but we have a festival every year called Snow and Flurry. And that is like something we never thought, like we have a fest now, like Tied Down Fest, we have like a big fucking fest and it's awesome. And it's like, and Noah and all of the others who make that possible, have worked so hard and they're so passionate about it and so thankless about everything, and we got to play it one year and it was just magical. So I have to say that, and it's their 10th year this year, and we've got Marauder coming. I mean, it's like I never thought we get to see
Judge, right? Isn't Judge playing?
Is Judge
Am I wrong with that? I could be wrong.
Oh my god. Anyway, I don't even. It's the list is awesome, and so, but the fact Marauders up kind of like I get like, all giddy with them because they're one of my favorites. But anyway, here's Dan.
Yeah.
Introduce him every time.
Anyway,
I'm a Dan. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. No, the thing I loved about the Minneapolis scene, like when I got into it in the 90s, early 90s, was that it was like a small scene and you would see the same people at all the shows. So whether it's a punk show, a hardcore show, metal show, like it was all the same people, and it was cool, like the openness to different genres. I mean, even some of the bills were wild. There was a show down at the bomb shelter which was Disembodied, so like heavy metalcore band, Dillinger 4, which is Minneapolis, more melodic punk, and the Promise Ring, so you've got emo, melodic punk, metalcore. So it's like, and people show up and like support everything, so it's really nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like we have that a little bit in Detroit too. See everyone everywhere. Yeah,
it's amazing, and that's why we're so excited to be here at Edgemen, because this is a place, like, for me personally, like, it's on my kind of bucket list of places to play, and like I really love the spaces that are not normally show spaces all the time, but this one has just kind of come in to be one. Like Program in Southern California, I want to play there at some point. Like just different places around the country that are on this list of places that I feel like are just hold such relevance for the scenes that they're in, and create such amazing space for bands like ourselves and whoever else to come through and no matter what, and they're just like, yeah, of course, we'll open our doors for you, and that's like so kind. So and this is just, the vibe is so awesome, and Jimmy's an amazing individual. So really happy to be here.
Yay. Okay, so this is the last one. What bands are you most excited to play alongside at Hellfest in a few days?
See, for me, I mean, I'm psyched to be playing that. Playing the same day as Terror, because for me, Scott Vogel is, I mean, not just an old friend, but a legendary person. Like him and I became friends in '95. I think before I was even in Harvest. Just like I saw them play with. For some reason, I was thinking it was Shelter, but I don't know if that was the show. But I saw him in like '95, and then in '96, the first Harvest tour was Harvest, Brothers Keeper, and Despair, and we went out for a month basically with those bands, and Scott was awesome. Like every single show he'd be out there dancing, and so it's awesome to be playing with them again. With Hatebreed, I'm psyched for Turmoil. I've always loved Turmoil. I'm psyched to see Disembodied. I'm psyched that both Harvest and Disembodied are playing, because it's wild. In the in the '90s, we were sister bands. We were always playing together. Always been good friends. But like since the '90s, we haven't. It's only like one show, I think, that in Minneapolis that we played both Harvest and Disembodied. So
That's
I'm psyched we're
legendary.
both playing, and other Minneapolis bands, Seraph, Awaiting
Yeah,
Eschiel,
exactly.
Nehemiah. It's cool to see so many Minnesota bands, but yeah, I'm psyched for Earth Crisis and Hatebreed and Glassjaw. I love Glassjaw. We played with Sons of Abraham, Justin's band before. So yeah, all sorts of bands. There's tons of good stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, mine. One of mine is Inclination.
Okay.
I just love that band. I just like their vibe. It's like, and the music's so heavy, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's fun. It reminds me a little of Foundation. It's kind of got that sentiment to it, and that band to me is awesome. I love Foundation so much. They're not playing, however, but like yeah, VOD.
Yeah.
I'm so. I don't know. Like they're just one of those bands that and Dan and I were trying to figure out if we had played with them before. We're on flyers together in the past, but we were trying to remember. I think we did once, but it was
out east.
Yeah, once. But I was trying to find that flyer, and that was the problem for me. And I'm going to be 53 in a week, so like it's like hard to remember certain things at a point. But anyway, long story short is VOD, of course, to see Jamie and Hatebreed again. And it's funny how Jamie and I run into each other so at really random places. We ran into each other in this was a funny story. I was living in Connecticut in Bridgeport in early aughts, and I go to Hartford Airport to just fly home to Minneapolis to fly back to visit my folks, and then Jamie's walking by. Jamie, what are you doing? He's like, oh, we just got back from like Hong Kong, and he's like, we were on the road for 300. This is our 360th show in 365 days.
Oh my god.
He says this, and I was like, are you kidding me right now? So yeah, it's wild. And so, of course I hadn't been playing in anything for 5 years and was just looking at him like, wow, that's incredible. Like you obviously like have made it. So yeah. And this was like, of course, 21 years ago. So yeah, wild to me to think that. So anyway, it'll be fun to see all of our old friends, and of course Trustkill and these Trustkill since we've been back together and over the last few years, and the Trustkill's kind of made a resurgence and re-releasing things and doing that. We've been in close talks about doing some other reissues and things like that, and so we'll see what the future holds there. But we're really excited for just to see all of the friends that we grew up with, and who are still just doing amazing things and who've made it a career, and which is awesome. And some, it's this isn't a career for us, but it is something that we hold near and dear, and we're still involved in our own scenes respectively, and doing what we can for our communities in the hardcore communities in our spaces. So that's all you can do, and it's for the love of it all, right? So yeah,
for sure. Awesome. Okay, well, I think that'll do. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate you answering my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and have a good night.
95. Is it cutting? Okay.
It's just hot.
Oh, okay.
Melting.
But yeah, so like